That's an understatement. Thank you. Sorry for the delay, Dr. Juan.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm actually sitting by, but that's all right. The speaker and the issues she addresses are much more important than having me on board. But happy to be here. I'm really sorry about last week again.
No, don't worry about it. But let's just keep on that American Rescue Plan. Are private schools at all involved in any conversation to get any of this money? And if so, what? And give the deets.
You know, I want to be very clear that we're getting no money at all through the Education Stabilization Funds or the American Rescue Plan. What we're getting are services that are being procured through GDOE. It would be great if Uncle Sam just wrote Juan Flores a check and I could go out and, you know, shop for the schools. But we really are going through a process whereby all of our projects being reviewed by GDOE's Federal Program Office. And those guys are incredibly patient with me, especially, and then also reviewed by the U.S. Education Department. But yes, the services that we're being availed of in the American Rescue Plan is something to the tune of $26 or $27 million. And one of the stipulations that I really like is that 20% of the services that we will receive have to be associated with evidence-based or research-based practices. And for us, it means getting professional development for classroom instruction or procedures that have already been scrutinized and have been demonstrated that there's evidence that those activities will be effective in helping students in the classroom. So that's a big challenge. That was not brought up in the Education Stabilization Funds in the 2 rounds, but the Biden administration and the U.S. Department of Education, U.S. Education Department under the Biden administration insist that part of what we do, especially for learning recovery, that we actually implement research-based or evidence-based practices.
Mm-hmm. So you said 26 or something like that million?
Yeah, yeah, something like that. I'm sorry that I don't have the exact dollar amount in my head, but
that's okay. But is that out of the 287 million that the Guam Department of Education announced that it was receiving in ARP funds?
Yes. As a state education agency, GDOE has determined that the students in the non-public schools, the Catholic schools, the other non-public schools, the other private schools, the charter schools, will receive services at the same level and with the equitable allocation as all the public school students.
Okay. And so therefore public schools share of that 287 is the 20+ million that you mentioned. I see. You know, there was something that we had discussed months ago about, I want to say it was a study that you were going to be conducting, and I can't remember if it was related to whether or not students were still, I don't know if it was learning loss or if it was the curriculum. Do you recall what I'm talking about?
Well, one of the
you were going to do an assessment or a study.
Yes, one of the things that we proposed, but we're actually finding different ways of doing it now, is to assess the students to determine the extent to which learning loss actually occurred. So, and right now, I'm advocating for doing it at the classroom level or at the school level, where we're trying to get a program that could be used in each classroom to assess the students in the 4 major core subject areas. So the teachers will know that 3rd graders at the beginning of the school year actually know certain things from 2nd grade or don't know certain things from 2nd grade, and they could start from that. And actually, I want to say that good teachers do that anyway, right? Mm-hmm. I have a friend who is a 5th grade teacher, and I remember the first time he told me that at the beginning of the school year, he gave his students the final exam for the fifth grade math from the fifth grade math textbook. And I said, well, that's crazy. That's unfair. The kids haven't had fifth grade math. And then he explained to me that the reason he did that is he wanted to find out where they were already strong in their math skills, and then where they had challenges, and then to focus on those challenges, right? So he'll still mention the areas that they're doing well in. And I think we want to do the same thing. If our students at the sixth grade level could write at a certain level, right? So they know verb and subject and verb agreement, but maybe they're not great at spelling, or maybe they're not great at using adjectives or adverbs, then they could address that, because maybe that's something they should have learned from the fifth grade. And that should be especially true in those transition years, right? So for the high schools to find out what are middle schools what are middle school students coming into high schools with in terms of strengths and challenges, so that they're not going to be behind the eight ball, that the teacher will already know what their challenges are and work to overcome those challenges. It might not happen in 1 year, but I think if we start it, I think we'll have a great chance for those students to be successful.
Oh, you know, one thing I've noticed is that I see all the press releases that come out of GDOE in terms of vaccination clinics that are being held at the different campuses. Is that something that the private schools have been having as well, or are you guys not folded into this discussion?
It's been offered, and actually for the high school students, those 16 and over, that's been offered. But the principals let me know that many of the students were doing it on their own anyway, that with their parents, they were going and getting vaccinated. So I'm not exactly sure. I haven't done an accurate count, but upwards of 60% of the students who could have been vaccinated have been vaccinated. And so we're now in discussions with public health and others about doing the same thing for the kids from 12 to 15 years old. The one thing that the schools have asked me to do is to encourage whoever's organizing these things to have these clinics, these vaccination clinics done when parents are available. Because parents have to escort their kids. So let's not do it in the middle of the day when parents are working. Let's do it in the evenings and on Saturdays, or on weekends, maybe only on Saturdays, so that it'd be easier for the parents to be able to take their kids. And I think that would encourage the participation.
Okay, so have you heard when they're going to roll that out in terms of lowering the age group? Because we did have Dr. Hoa on earlier, and he was mentioning they may roll it out next week. Have you heard that?
I haven't gotten a definite date, and I'm actually glad that sometimes we get the heads up that it's coming, because that gives me a chance to let the principals know and for them to react and maybe suggest the best way to do these things. And you know, like everybody else, but especially the principals, they're juggling 100 things at the same time. So if I can steal a moment for them to think about something constructive, many of them just respond and reply right away. Some of them take a day or so to respond, but at least they put it in their heads that they've got to think about it. And getting the heads up really does help.
Mm-hmm. What kind of discussions are you guys having now for next school year, and preparations for next school year?
Having it.
Yeah.
encouraging full, if not almost all, full face-to-face participation by all students, ensuring that we continue to have the right health and safety protocols in place, and that we have all the equipment needed for all of that. And some of that is coming from the procurement of items for PPE and things like that. And you know, the other thing is that I think if the schools are anticipating that there are going to be challenges because students have been out of school or have had to have hybrid arrangements, or they just haven't gotten in their blood that school is back in session, we're going to try to figure out a way to get them in the, well, when I was going to say something really kind of 70-ish, to get them in the groove, you know. And fortunately for us, the majority of our Catholic school students have been in school since January. So being in school for face-to-face instruction is the norm. Wearing a mask is the norm. Hopefully, you know, keeping social distance is the norm, and washing your hands, of course, often.
Oh, well, speaking of social distancing, you know, there was this picture that was circulating around social media, and it was a picture of the FD graduation. You're kind of smiling, chuckling about it, but yeah, you know, because people were saying, hey, that doesn't seem right. We've got all these kids taking a group picture. They're not wearing masks. What happened to social distancing? So, you know, have you gotten those similar concerns?
Absolutely. And you know, I want to say, first of all, that I worked with the school principals to actively advocate for the kinds of graduation ceremonies that the schools want. And the overwhelming sentiment on the part of the principals was, these kids deserve it because they have come to school for face-to-face instruction. They have given up all of what normally would happen. I make a joke about the kindergarten graduations, right? Because they're 5 years old and they've only had 1 year of school and yet they're already having a graduation. I mean, I know that's a traditional thing, but you know what? If that's the norm, then let's try to get back to it. So I think that what happened at Father Duenas, while it wasn't perfect, I mean, I was there for most of the time. And yes, there were some situations. There was a safety person there. And when I mentioned to him that there were some concerns, he was on it right away. He was walking the building. He was reminding people of what needed to be done. I wasn't in the room. I wasn't in the Phoenix Center when the photo was taken. I didn't even know that it was going to be taken, but that's how quickly it took place. And right after they took their masks off and had the picture taken, smiled, and then put their mask back on, you know, it was only a matter of minutes. Now, could there have been a transmission of the virus in that quick minute? Maybe. But I don't think it was, and it certainly was not a sort of purposeful snub at the protocol. It was an attempt to try to get some kind of normalcy, and I know that photo was taken every time. Maybe we need to find another way to have an all group photo. But I think even with some glitches, the protocols are followed pretty well. And, you know, one of the challenges that we had last Wednesday, which we didn't have last year when FD had graduation, was people are letting up, right? People have been vaccinated, people are going to bars, they're doing things now that are not as restrictive as they used to be. And I think the emotions of the graduation overtook a lot of people that night. And if there was some hugging and close contact with people with or without masks, I think overall what people were responding to was, you know, their I don't know, emotions surging because of that graduation.
Well, let me ask you, Juan, next graduation you guys have at the Catholic schools, would you do this again? The class pick with the no masks and all that?
My understanding is that the next graduations, the next high school graduations will not have the same thing.
There you go. All right. Bree, you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was there anything else?
So the last thing about the graduation is before I even heard from him, I initiated an email message to Art St. Augustine and his staff because they've been working with us and they've been supportive of the indoor graduations. And I assured them that I'll work a little harder to make sure that the protocols are followed, maybe a little better, and that we won't do anything that will jeopardize the integrity of the protocols.
Summer school, last question, Juan. Are you guys doing any summer school?
There are three schools, maybe four schools, that are availing themselves of funding through the education stabilization funds to be able to pay. One school has decided it's going to have summer school, but they're just going to require tuition from the families. They're not taking advantage of the federal funds. So we're working with them right now to get what are called service agreements through GDOE, where they turn in paperwork. They're like vendors, and then they'll be paid through GDOE. At least the coordinators and the teachers will. So as soon as those are fully developed, I think the schools will be making formal announcements.
All right. Keep us posted, Juan.
Okay.
We'll see you. Quick break, guys. 9:18 on the link. We're back with more next. Good morning.
Family platter of fried chicken?
Check.
Tray of red rice?
Check.
Birthday cake?
Check.
1 case of water?
Check.
12-pack of beer?
Check.
2 cases of Pepsi?
Check. When you have a long checklist but are